Ouchies Batrep, recommending you not to paint your tanks pink. Today I'm taking on my good buddy Tank Rider in his beautifully painted German force. He's actually gearing up for Wolfkrieg, and I decided to go ahead and field out something that might be representative of what he's going to see over there in their scenario-specific tourney. I'm rolling with the Commandos. I actually got a bit confused. I didn't realize that the 12-strong unit had its own command team, or at least 2 command teams, so I ended up only bringing 1 command team with me. As you can see, the objectives have been placed on the board. He places his 2 objectives in the middle and the north end of the board, while I place mine on the very southern end of the board. I think the woods down there is going to be the most easily defended terrain feature. I don't want to end up out in the open defending the middle or the northern ones, but nonetheless, that's not how the game's played. I go ahead and put the Shermans in the ambush. This is actually kind of a questionable move even now, but my thinking then was that the Shermans can respond to anything. The Shermans can respond to the infantry, principally, that I'm most afraid of. And I can ding or at least hurt his stugs. So the Achilles, they just have to hold out to whatever objective they are. And since they are tanks, they can sweep and move to any direction that I need them to and respond in kind. Hopefully, I'm thinking that soon I'll be able to open up a new flank on them. And in order to do that, I put the Achilles on the northern end of the board towards the northern objective. As you can see in his deployment, he has gone for a heavy deployment to the south. He is trying for a denied flank. This is a pretty classic maneuver in miniature games like this. It's worth noting I had the opportunity to attack, but I considered without the ambush, the Achilles would be out in the open and kind of awful. And there you go. That's the difference between a great player and a good player. He is very conscientious of his opponent, and he's pretty good about that. He shakes, he compliments good rolls even when he's dying. That's always a welcome sight in any opponent. Now, I'm not going to harp on any particular player base, but it is always important to be a conscientious winner and a conscientious loser, because nothing spoils a game quite like dealing with somebody that just can't handle a little bit of excitement. It's very frustrating. As you can see, the Germans went ahead and started deploying in the woods. They unloaded everything that they can. They moved up the Pioneers, and they're getting ready to shoot at the Commandos down there in the tree line below. It's to very little effect, though, but since I have priority air, the Typhoons, or in this case a Mosquito, starts rolling in. I go ahead and start picking on the infantry out there in the open, or at least that's kind of a wood line out there. I figure I need to pin them. I need to separate it out so that the Commandos only have one front to worry about. Now my buddy starts pointing out that I should probably hit with HE with the mortars, but I've done that so many times before. You get this bloodlust with the little 3-inch mortars and you think you're going to kill something, but you never do. But he pointed out that, you know, they're almost as good as howitzers against infantry out in the open. So I go ahead and smoke it anyway. The infantry begin holding the center line. They are all dug in, well established to take on any kind of affront, but they haven't moved. They're staying there. Meanwhile, Gebardson, come get your freaking M10. It's got stuck out here in the woods while the rest of the Achilles start moving out there to start harassing or at least opening up another flank on them to give his infantry something to consider when they start opening out into the open. The Germans are a bit antsy at this point. They do not know where the Shermans are. I have not revealed that ambush, and he's very concerned that they're going to show up somewhere else. As a matter of fact, it's the first thing he does whenever my turn starts. He asks me if I want to pop out the Shermans. I'm like, no, it's okay. So the Germans start moving down the hillside, and they start shooting at the infantry dug in into the woods to no effect. They have yet to do anything. So I go ahead and pop out the Shermans. It's do or die for the Shermans. If I don't pop them now, they're going to be popping way farther away, so I go ahead and open them up in the woods. This way, he has to consider that if the engineers somehow fail, he can't just directly assault with the stugs. He has to deal with the tanks, and because the tanks are there, the engineers now have to deal with the tanks until the MG dice is such that they're not going to get pinned in the assault, so now they're stuck out in the open. The Mosquitoes begin ranging in again. I'm now picking on the infantry that are also still out there in the open, and I also get naval gunfire to finally range in on them. It kills one stand, so I can't be too angry about that, but I had a whole gaggle of them under the template. I was kind of hoping that a little bit more might have been able to have been killed. But what can you do? I actually forget to move the M10s on the northern end of the board, so I go ahead and move them at the discretion of my opponent. And wouldn't you know it, the tank is still stuck out there in the woods. I would send another M10 back there to help take care of them, but I'm pretty sure the game would be over by the time they actually got out. Besides, I need tanks fighting, not towing. As the German infantry out in the open towards the middle of the board fails to unpin from the naval gunfire and the aircraft coming down on them, they begin realizing that they need a better spread of coverage of their anti-aircraft platforms. The Mozzies have so far been an endemic problem, just striking and generally making a pace of the German advance along the center line of the board. But it hasn't really slowed them down much. The German infantry have pushed up to the wood line and are now challenging the Sherman tanks and the infantry out in the open, making a charge that would be reminiscent of something from the Civil War. Nonetheless, they have flamethrowers, they have Panzerschrecks, and they have a lot of MG dice that they want to throw out there if they could. They begin peppering the infantry in front of them, and they manage to cause a pin, but it's not enough to actually stop them. Nonetheless, in an excellent display of German engineering, they decide to do some danger close artillery shots with it, and it manages to kill two stands by themselves. Following it up, the Germans charge into the Sherman nest, and they are repelled. Somewhere between the machine gun dice and the flamethrowers actually being left somewhere at home, they manage to not cause any kind of trouble to the Shermans and infantry whatsoever, and they pull back. Two stands shorter for it all. With the German assault blunted, he actually starts moving back and reconsidering everything that was going to be done on that end of the board. Meanwhile, I continue moving the Achilles forward. There's got to be something I need to do with them, except for that blasted one stuck in the woods for turn 3. The infantry also begin reconsidering their foxholes. The ones in the center are still too far north to be of any assistance, so I start removing them from their foxholes and start swinging them around the woods under cover so that they can reinforce the commandos down here on the southern end of the board. The Mozzies, however, continue making an absolute mess of the staff team out in the open. I gotta keep that gun battery pinned, because every turn that he's opening up, he's thinning out the infantry down on the southern end of the board, and now it's just a matter of attrition. If he can thin it out enough, he will charge with the pioneers. So I begin hitting him with that and ranging in with the coastal artillery, but it doesn't find its mark. It's a waste of points. It's now turn 4, and he starts reconsidering the location of some of his artillery observers. Since the Achilles have started moving out there to challenge them, he doesn't want to lose them so quickly, so he starts moving them around. But the whole objective from the British end is just to give him something to think about so that he can give the infantry a little bit of time to move around. And as the first item I remove from the board for the turn 4 removal, I remove those stupid Achilles. I'm pretty sure the one on the north didn't have very far to walk. Meanwhile, the Mozzies come in again, which is just darn right awesome, and begins pinning the staff team. It's all I can hope for. Which is awesome considering the amount of anti-aircraft fire that they're taking, which is something that I rectified. The Shermans turn around and manage to nail another Stug and open up on some of the anti-aircraft guns with their weak front armor. They managed to turn them into Swiss cheese and make things just a little bit easier for the Mozzies. But as the turn comes to close, he goes ahead and makes morale for the Stugs, and it turns out they'd rather have the Strudel back at home. That is a fantastic win for the Shermans, because now they have really nothing to oppose them, except for oodles and oodles of Panzerschrecks, which is very much a problem. Unfortunately, the artillery unpins and begins shelling the Commandos again. There's not a whole lot I can do about that right now. We're moving some more Commandos in so that we can hopefully take care of them, but he pins them out in the open. He finds a couple shots, manages to deliver just enough damage to put the Commandos into a reconsideration of their mortal coil. But it doesn't stop the sniper at all as he pops out of the open and starts taking shots at the Recce team right in front of him. He's just outside of 4 inches and he manages to pin the unit in front of him fantastically. There's not a whole lot I can do at this point. I can just trade shots with them all day long, so that's what I end up doing. The Shermans begin picking out any hard target that they can find. They've lost one in the exchange with Panzerschrecks, and we hope for the coastal artillery to actually do something, but I think the cruiser operators are drunk because they've managed to not range in but one time in the entire game. In a stroke of luck, the Luftwaffe actually manages to show up, and of course he sends it after the coastal battery observation point. I'd rather send the guy to a firing squad. I don't know what coordinates he's sending them, but it's the wrong coordinates. He begins moving the Germans up a pincer maneuver. He's finally got them unpinned. He's also got them narrowed down to the point where I can't effectively throw fire everywhere. The artillery opens up again. The sniper falls back under a withering fire, but he manages to come back to the pool, so he'll show up again later on. He begins opening up again with all the Panzerschrecks into the tanks in front of him. It's a deadly barrage I wish I wasn't being able to take, but he manages to kill the Firefly in the exchange. Between that and the artillery, the tanks are all dying left and right. It's left to nothing but the infantry hunkering down, praying for their lives at this point, because they have seen saturated artillery fire from almost turn 1 on that hill. We've been hitting him a lot with the Mozzies, but he keeps unpinning, and this is turning out to be disastrous. Ironically, his anti-aircraft hasn't really done much to actually stop the aircraft. The infantry are trading shots at point-blank range. It's only a matter of time now as the Commandos are starting to find themselves in fewer and fewer numbers. I go ahead and pull the objective I think that he's most likely to take, the one in the middle, because I highly doubt he's going to be able to double time all the way to the top. And the sniper comes back out on the other side of the woods. He doesn't have much shots to take, but from that angle, he's going to do pretty okay. The idea being that he can actually respond if there's ever an assault towards the tank, or if he has to assault through the woods. The sniper can take a shot again and hopefully pin and buy the Commandos on the southern end another turn. The relief Commandos continue moving through the open streets and towards the woods down in the south. They need all the help that they can get because it's now going to come down to the stand. It's going to be an assault at the very end. It's very clear that this is going to be down to the wire. But in the sky, it looks like we got some more friends as the Mozzies continue to range in. They manage to pile in on that huge stack of German infantry, he hits with everything, and he manages to make every single save. Does that just make you sick? It's turn 7. The game has come down to the wire. He's got a platoon on the southern end, ready to take on the Commandos in the woods, and he's got another platoon on the northern end, making it very clear that he can take it on from either end. He's got 2 platoons to do this. The Commandos for the relief unit are too far away to assist, and all that's left is Lord Lovat, the CIC, and a sniper team to assist with everything, and yet he still has artillery to keep ranging in and making sure that everyone stays pinned for the assault that is about to come. And if the situation could get worse on the southern end, a Sherman buys it to infantry anti-tank fire, thus securing a route for the assault for the northern and southern ends. But the sniper pins that assault on the northern end. It took just 1 hit and it pinned the whole unit, but on the southern end they still make contact and they kill the only Sherman down there to defend them all, leaving just the Commandos to take care of the entire situation. I could probably contest the objective by falling back for a turn, but I'm not going to go down like that. I hum Scotland the Brave as best I can, and I send them into close combat, and it's a disaster. I've never rolled so many ones in my life. As a matter of fact, Lord Lovat and the CIC ended up in it, and they died too, just adding to that disaster, making it a complete company rout. This has been an Ouchies Batrep, and thanks for watching.